Well, fantastic. Here we are with Rebecca Dance-Shuker. It's been a while. You've been travelling the globe, back from the UK, I gather.
Yeah.
Good trip?
Yeah, it was great. It was nice to get out of the heat of Dubai for a bit. Nice to see some greenery, spend a bit of time with the family, and also do some work at the same time. But it's always nice to sometimes go on a business trip and just sit on a plane and reflect for a bit, rather than being in the rat race day to day. So yeah, it was nice.
Good. Well, we can gloss back over your 20-year career in sport. So I'm really excited to find out the highs and the lows. I'm sure there've been a few of each, more highs than lows, I hope. But actually, what I wanted to ask you about and where I wanted to start was you've launched your own consultancy business, Sync.World, and you're focusing on sport and sustainability in sport. Clearly, a passion of ours, and that's why we're here. We've done some work together over the last 12 months, but tell me a little bit more about why you launched it now and how the last sort of 20 years have sort of guided why you decided to do that.
Thanks, Sean. And, this consultancy transition is relatively new. Hands up, I've been on payroll of different businesses for many, many years. So you always look at consultants and think the grass is greener on the other side. Ask me that question again in a year's time and I'll let you know how I'm getting on. But my career has been 20 years, 20 plus years. I started out in 2000 post my degree in a little sports development unit at Southampton City Council, where I was given the Awards for All programme, which was a government scheme, to go out into communities at grassroots level and fund them. £5,000, I think they got at the time. But what that sort of opened my eyes up to was really how sport has got such a power to engage communities from all levels, social inclusion aspects, women and girls, marginalised communities across all spectrums of sport. And actually, it's very much, from a UK perspective, this is very much volunteer-led. Is it governed well, and how well was it governed back in the day? It's definitely improved, but it kind of opened my eyes up to where there were gaps, where there were challenges, but also massive possibilities with sport. And then my career kind of grew from there. I went to work on London 2012, part of the Paralympic regeneration programme. And then I was working in football for a long time. I was at Fulham, proud. I'm not a Fulham fan. I'm a Fulham fan when they
Don't tell everyone.
I'm a Liverpool fan. But when someone pays your wages, you kind of become a fan. And I had the most amazing 7 years there, working under Alistair McIntosh, that came from Man City to Fulham, and I think he's still there now. And my role was really to look at how the club was engaging its local community. I was paid from the charity arm, the foundation arm, but very much sat in a hybrid role with a commercial team. And that was so interesting, looking at sponsorship deals, everything we were doing, the club was doing to make sure it was giving back to not only the fans through fan engagement, but also for the community. And again, looking at those marginalised communities. And I believe, actually, this season, the Riverside Stand, this amazing new complex, has just opened. And I was put on that project back in 2008, working with the government, trying to understand how it was going to change the flow of the river, how many newts were going to be destroyed from it. It was so interesting. It really was. It was so interesting. I look back and think, God, it's taken them 20 years to get to this amazing facility, and opened up all of the waterfront. So I'm, really fond of my days at Fulham. Kind of was moving up the career ladder. And then I got a call from the Mayor's office to say, would you come and work for Boris and set up his Paralympic charity, Interactive, which shifted me into a policy and advocacy role, which again was so interesting because you're writing policies, which is about disability rights in sport, and going into government and lobbying government. And then came home from work one day and my husband said, we need to move to Hong Kong.
How convenient.
Yeah, great. I've just got this job, which I'm loving. But actually, looking back, I would never have probably moved to countries. And what that taught me really was, well, I've got to start again. I have no network here. I'm still really passionate about sport. had my kids, and shifted into an ESG role. So CSR was still very prominent.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong. ESG was sort of emerging in the West, I'd say, as I was leaving in 2013, 2014 from the UK, working already, 10 plus years in sport across government, commercial, corporate and policy. Shifting to Hong Kong, I was like, oh my God, their sports strategies. China and Hong Kong sports strategy at the time was major medals at Olympic Games, major sporting events, and also facilities. So my first question was like, where's the grassroots program? Where's community development? There was nothing. And really all my skills, I couldn't even use them because there was a very, very small structure. So I shifted into ESG and loved it. I loved the working with corporates, looking at how do they transition a CSR strategy into an ESG strategy, like looking at impact, writing frameworks. And I was part of what is actually, I think now, a global model of the Hong Kong Exchange, implemented a diversity, I can't remember the name of it, diversity policy. It must have been a policy, which I got asked to comment on. And it was basically introducing any business within Hong Kong sitting on the stock exchange had to have a gender equity board. And that then had to feed through the whole business. We wrote recommendation after recommendation and it got passed. And I think it's in 2021. Anyone who was already on the stock exchange had 3 years to shift into a gender balanced board and a gender balanced business and write plans of how they were going to gender parity across their business. And anyone new coming into the Hong Kong Exchange had to already have an existing balanced board. And that really shifted the momentum in Hong Kong because suddenly someone's put a regulation in place and everyone has to follow it. And that was it was so amazing to be part and seeing how that kind of evolved. I'm not going to put my hands up and say I was just a very small part of that cog.
Right. Doubt that.
And then Laureus Sport for Good picked up the phone and said, we want to set up a Hong Kong office. So I clapped my hands, rubbed them together and said, I'm excited to go back into the world of sport. But I'd already learned so much by being in the corporate ESG world that I could transition that back into Sport for Good. So I led their Asia office, set up partnerships, business development opportunities, fundraising strategies, working with high net worth individuals to really raise funds on that social sustainability element. It was purely social impact. We weren't really touching on anything environmental. And I got to travel Asia, go out to some of the most remote parts of the world and really see the life-changing work that the power of sport has in some of the most marginalised communities. That's probably on my 20 plus years in sport is the most enjoyable, but also really sitting in an office, raising the profile, working with corporates to write the strategies, and then going out and seeing it actually come to life is definitely a huge career highlight. And then when we moved to the Middle East, again, another pivot, I'm back to a blank piece of paper and starting over again, which is, I've done it before and I'll do it again. I've been here 3 years now. And the setting up the consultancy is a shift because I feel like I've learned a lot across really kind of a broad spectrum of ES&G in sport. And I feel like I've got a lot I can bring to the table in terms of just that sort of understanding cultural nuances, understanding that bottom-up approach, not only from a UK West perspective, but also now a Hong Kong and Asia perspective. And now I can bring that to Middle East, which is now a booming sports market, but there's a lot to do and there's a lot to learn. But I think bringing experts in to help the Middle East on their sports journey is a positive thing.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, what a journey. I mean, it's interesting just sort of sitting across the table and listening to that. And I think a few takeaways for me was you were very early to the party, very, very early. In fact, you probably put the party on, in terms of community. For me, having been in sport, community has always been talked about and hand on heart, I think it's been an afterthought for most sports businesses.
Yeah.
And I think it's only recently where sponsors are demanding it more and more that it's actually being activated on. So you were way ahead of the curve then. I think the other thing was really interesting was that Hong Kong regulation. Dealing with regulation, which obviously we're now seeing here in the UAE. I mean, when we were last here, we were chatting about the UAE climate law. And we're huge fans of top-down regulation because I think that sport has needed it in order to get its house in order. But, I mean, that's a trailblazing story if ever I've heard one. And congratulations on setting up the new consultancy. I mean, there's not many people that can put that CV together and go, right, I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it's such a growing area now. If you talked about sustainability 20 years ago, people are going, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Financial sustainability, that's what it was referred to, right? Is making sure a business is financially sustainable. It has a business plan. It has income, profit and loss. Now it's probably shifted the other way, that it's so broad a conversation. And then when we bring it to sport, it's probably even broader again. But it's an exciting place to be, because I think there's one thing I learned in my career is I do want to make sure I'm making a difference, like I'm shifting a dial on something.
Yeah.
And sustainability is a calling for me in a way, because I do feel like every day, whatever piece of work I'm doing, whether it's for a corporate, whether it's for a national governing body, whether it's for a charity, I'm doing something that's making a difference. I think there's a huge challenge within this particular region. I think it's a global challenge, but I think particularly in the Middle East, is that sustainability is still a bit of a tick box scenario. If it's corporate led in sport, often it's a brand marketing opportunity, which is great to raise profile, but actually what happens after that event, after that activation, what happens next? And I think our role and our responsibility in sustainability is to, try and help organisations keep the longer term focus, to measure, put metrics in place, measure data, measure impact, and show the difference, because a one-off event is great, but what is it really, really done in the long term?
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that one of the most inspiring acts is when you see this in children and you see it in athletes, right? As you start to get better, you can measure your time. You can run the 100 meters quicker. You want to go out and train harder. Yeah. You can kick a ball harder. You can, hit a golf ball further. That progress is probably the most powerful piece of inspiration. And you're absolutely right. If you just do it for an event and then you stop, it filters out very, very quickly. And the other thing I would say is I think that you're right about the sustainability has been too broad for sport, in my view. I think it got tangled up in climate sustainability way too much. Now, obviously, climate is a threat to many sports, but quite rightly, everyone was saying, well, I'm not really sure I can do much on my own. And that's why it's a collective approach. But the social impact stuff, which has been your sort of calling card and what you've done, all sport can do it, probably better than anything else.
Totally agree.
And I think it's learning from people like yourselves who can show corporates what the impact is.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people can do it. I mean, you probably don't come across too many people you go, oh yeah, I've done exactly that as well, do you?
I don't hear, and I didn't actually when I was in Hong Kong, but in the UK I've become part of a collective called Affleck & Co, which is a women's led consultancy. So I'm a lead consultant for them. And we are a group of 10, 12 women who've been doing this for years and years and years. And so have all come together to be a bit, collectively to be more powerful, to be able to shift a dial on something. And it's so interesting when I sit around the table with these women who I'm in awe of, most of them, because We've got somebody who's just come out of Parliament who's now in the collective. We've got journalists in that collective. We have got women who've worked in a specific niche of sport and disability for years. So it's really interesting seeing us all working together and bringing something different to the table. So in the UK, I still feel like it's quite a strong movement. And definitely in Asia, India, it's big. There's a lot of people doing amazing work in India. And hand on heart, it's my favourite place I've ever worked, and it's my favourite place to ever go and see projects, because you get such honesty from everybody and such energy from everybody. I can walk into a community, a slum in the east part of Delhi called Simapuri. I've been there about 5 times. It's a garbage picking slum. And it gives me goosebumps when I think about it, because when I stopped working for Laureus, that was the only people I told, and I just genuinely burst into tears, because I was like, I'm not going to be able to come and see you again. But seeing the difference that sport has made in that community, it's incredible. Yeah. And everyone is supportive of it. We've sport mobilised the police to actually engage better with young people. Sport has cleaned up 8 garbage picking areas which had needles and rubbish. So the girls, particularly the girls, because it's a women and girls focused project, can play football. We've put coaching courses on in those communities. Those girls have now gone out to train and deliver their own football teams. The crime rate has reduced. The drug and alcohol rate amongst the young population has reduced, because there's a sense of purpose. There's a sense of trust. There are male models within the home who have shifted their perspective on sport for girls, but also they're girls going to school, going, this actually, go back to school and learn to read and write. I've had a woman who was in a really kind of challenging home, particularly domestic violence, who shifted into one of the sport for development programs that we were running. And I'll call out Slum Soccer here because they're incredible, and delivering. And she said, I have the confidence now to be able to go and read and write. She was 22 years old. She still couldn't read or write. And she got a job in the local library, changed her life in like 2.5 years. And that is purely through the power of sport. So, there is some amazing work going on, and there are amazing people. But here, coming back to your question, it's still quite niche. And actually, it can be a bit lonely. That's why we're friends, Sean.
Well, exactly. And when you've met, obviously, all the SIS team, and my God, do we need you on board? I mean, there's just a bunch of old men sitting there telling each other how great they are. So, you're part of the family, you know that. I think it's interesting. India's obviously very close to my heart as well. I think one of the things that I thought was really, really impressive was how fast the women's IPL established itself. I mean, I know it's cricket and I know it's India, but it would have been very easy for them to go, it's a bit like the Celebrity League, and it's not, it's serious. So, one of the sort of inspirational teams in there is actually UP Warriors. Some of the stuff they're doing is just brilliant. They also own Sharjah Warriors as well. So stay close to them, because I think you'll see the impact they have on their communities, because it's driven by the owners, and the team are buying into it. And I don't know whether, this is a question for you really. The girls seem to buy into that collective community opportunity. Is it because it's a relatively new experience for them? I mean, I'm judging that based on some tired old professional, male sports stars who at times can be, it's actually about me, whereas my sense is that a lot of the girls' teams operate as a team from day one. Is it look, let's just celebrate, we're here, we're on the stage, and we'll make the most of it? Or I don't want to read too much into it, but from the outside and as a sports fan looking in, you go, they kind of seem to be enjoying themselves a bit more than the men are.
And also working as a team sometimes, I think. I don't know, I think it's just, it's probably not the same everywhere in the world, but I think when you bring a group of women together who probably haven't had that opportunity or never even imagined they'd have that opportunity, they're going to make the bloody most of it.
Yeah.
You know, then they're going to prove everybody that this was the best decision that investor, that sponsor, that club owner was ever going to make. And damned it, are you ever going to take it away from us? There's a huge amount of determination because those opportunities can come and go, and we see them come and go. I mean, the shift in women's football in Saudi is incredible. And most people don't know about that shift of it being illegal to play football not so long ago, and now look at what they're doing. So, you know, change can happen fast and quickly if you get the right people behind it, and you create that opportunity for a bunch of women, and they're going to make the absolute best
but that's,
of it.
I mean, it's easy for us to say because, you know, this is kind of our habitat, but I think, you know, that's what the power of sport is. I mean, it's very hard to find any other activity that can shift the dial as fast. It's kind of harnessing it, isn't it? And how do you harness it correctly so that you do give people a chance, and then you can demonstrate, as you've done for 20 years, how do you transfer that into the communities? You know, I still think it's an interesting one where you see the awards, right? It's not my favourite topic, but the community awards. It's almost people are getting awarded for doing something in the community. It's like, no, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Most sports clubs started from a community,
Yeah.
right? And you know, the traditions in the UK, particularly in football, are really, really strong. But we're getting rewarded and awarding, you know, team stuff for doing what they should do.
Yeah.
You know, there are some exceptional pieces, but it's something we need to transfer here because as we, you know, as you said in Hong Kong and here now, when you've got top-down regulation, I guess our challenge is now is how do we filter that down into the grassroots here?
I think for me, the regulation piece is critical because it makes people have to do something. But I do think it has to be a bottom up as well. I think the two have to meet in the middle. And I mean that by if someone's telling you to create sustainability within your business structure or your organisation, the regulation makes you go, you know, it's now, I've got to build it into my business structure, right? Because if I don't, I'm going to get a fine or I'm going to get shut down. But then is the intention really there? Does it get then pushed to one person or a small team of people to go off and do that, and we'll carry on with the rest of the business? Whereas if you can find this purpose, and you know, in sustainability now we talk a lot about profit and purpose and the corporate shared value piece, which is a Harvard, and I some people poo-poo it. I really truly believe in it. I think there's a big cross between ESG, CSR, and CSV. But if you can look at this, create this bottom-up approach as well, and create a culture across your business, and it sounds like a cliche because everyone's saying, oh, you know, purpose is great. It isn't a cliche if you get it right, because as soon as the regulation comes, it's just going to be naturally happening anyway, and everyone will be behind it and supportive of it. And I think, you know, in sport, that you've got, I'm kind of shifting now into like the fan engagement piece, but it's still the same thing, is you've got regulation, but fans will tell you and react to your club or to your sport if you're not doing something in sustainability now. They will ask the questions and they will leave. So they have also got a voice within this whole mix. So you've got the regulation coming in from the top. If you can create the culture up from the bottom, and then within a sports structure, you bring the fans into that as well, it's going to be a win-win for everybody. But I just think as a bottom-up approach and the fans, you have to keep it simple.
Yeah, but I think that is this kind of secret sauce to the sports business, isn't it? Your ability to engage fans, not take advantage of their connection, and actually enhance that. That's, you know, people have struggled with it. Big football clubs in the UK are having a rough time with some of that. But you're right. If you can get them sort of pulling in the same direction, you know they already love you because they're buying your shirt and they're buying your tickets. Yeah. So it shouldn't be, you know, you don't have to convince them that, you know, you're playing together. But I think that's fascinating. You know, we're probably too deep into sport, you and I.
But
and it does appear obvious, but perhaps it's not.
How many sports fans are there in the world? 9 billion or something?
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot. So if every single sports fan took a small responsibility for, let's go back to climate and environment, because that's really, you know, where they can shift the dial. If each one of them was educated, to Sport Impact Summit's point, in the education piece, in what does recycling really mean? Ask the question to your government, where is that money? Yeah. Where's the recycling going? Waste management, not getting in your car because you know the impact of that. And we laugh in our house because we've just bought one of those tuk-tuk things, which my husband stuck a Ferrari sticker on because he's like...
We are in Dubai.
But we as a family were like, why are we getting in the car to drive 2 kilometres up the road to pick the kids up from school? And that's not sports related, but there's those little things that if we could get the 9 billion fans in the world to do one or two simple things,
and look,
change would,
as
would
you
be
know,
easier.
that's what Sport Impact was all about. That was right at the heart of setting it up. Was that ability to use sport to reach, but also when you reach, you've got to inspire them. And you know, I think that's the thing about sport as a channel is if we could get them to do one thing different, the net impact is huge. So what
is that one thing though?
Well, I think it varies from one region, one town, one team. You know, everyone should pick one they like, and you know, guess what? Why don't we ask the fans what they care about? I mean, that would be really novel. Say, you know, what's the one thing you'd like us to do better?
Yeah. And also young people. I think we should be the young fans.
Yeah, well, you've seen the data that says, I can't remember what the exact figures are, but that the demographic that every sport team's after, you know, the sort of 18 to 34-year-olds who are spending money on sport. I mean, there's a very high percentage that are willing to pay more for a ticket if it's going to a sustainable cause. And, you know, I think what's quite interesting now is you're beginning to see... I don't know if you saw Cell GP have got a carbon tax on their tickets, which is cool. I mean, I thought, you know, if it was for something else, there'd be a lot of pushback. Yeah. But I mean, that's, you know, sport is powerful. It's got lots of opportunity. You know, the other thing I just wanted to sort of touch on was, you know, you co-founded MESBN here. Quite early days, but how's that all going? I mean, I've seen it about there, and you've just done a sustaining excellence event. All good?
Yeah, it's going really well. We're in our first year. So the Middle East Sport and Business Network was co-founded by myself, Amanda Fox-Pike and Stephen Whitley. Really, from my perspective, we each have come into it differently, I think, which is great because we're starting to find our feet of where is the direction of this going. It was purely to build a network of like-minded individuals across the sport and business community. That is anyone from entry level of sport and business, so those that are graduating, those that are coming into the sector, all the way through to the top, to the C-suite and the executive levels, to create a community. And I could come back to the community, but in a different sense, not a social impact sense, but a day-to-day community that people can tap into to share best practice, raise questions, and actually have a reason to come together. I think the movement of AI is hugely positive in many ways for the world. But what we will lack is this human connection, because we're all going to be sitting behind computer screens more and more and more. Although I did hear an interesting statistic the other day, is that AI is going to save us 7 hours a day.
Well, that is, so I'm quite a fan of it, you know, for that reason. But
we can go out and do 7 hours of sport.
More golf. Yeah, great.
So the reason we created it is to bring people into a room together. And it's pretty much going back to that sort of bottom-up approach. At the moment, our infrastructure is allowing us to meet the community's needs. If a collective group of people said, we really want to put on an event, or we'd like to hear an expert talk on sport and sustainability, we would do that. If we had a group that were startup businesses in the Middle East, and like, we'd really like to have a chance to speak to other people starting up businesses. Okay, we'll put that on. So then we bring a panel together with 50% networking and 50% thought leadership across every single event or opportunity where we're bringing people together. And there's a reason for that. It's because we want people to talk to each other and network and connect. And then you've got the kind of the conversation, as it were. We've all got shorter concentration spans these days, so we're trying to keep them quite short, sharp and niche. And that does then vary the people that walk into that room who sign up and attend. So there's always a very mixed group. We're priding ourselves on every panel is diverse, and the room is diverse. We've got an audience of a community now of 1,000 people.
Wow, fantastic.
From nothing to 1,000 in 7 months. 60% of those are individuals that work within the Middle East sport business ecosystem. 40% are outside. We've done a bit more research of why are people joining our network from outside, and that's because they either want to move to the Middle East for sport, their head office is potentially looking to open here, or they're looking for a life change, career change, and that they're involved in sport. So most of it is because there's a transition. And it's been quite UAE centric to start with, and that's for purely because we're a startup and we want to prove a concept. We are taking it to Saudi soon, and we've got interest in Qatar and Bahrain to build the network out there. We put Middle East in the name for a reason. We do intend for this to be Middle East wide. It's nothing but positive. The challenges of a startup are always apparent. We're looking for more partnerships, definitely. It's in a really good place, and we're super proud that we've created this by listening to the community rather than anything else. And we intend to try and keep it that way for as long as possible.
Well, it was great. And we loved having you at the summit in 2024. And as we kind of look forward to December 25, it'd be great to have you guys involved in that again. We'll be taking your guidance, I'm sure, throughout the next sort of 4 or 5 months, getting ready for it. But, just to sort of wrap up, I was thinking, you've got so much breadth of experience and you've got your feet on the ground here. So what are the 2 or 3 trends that you're getting excited about happening here now that we could potentially look to bring to Sport Impact in December 2025 and showcase and celebrate? What would you pick as the top sort of 2 or 3?
I think one of the most exciting things about the Middle East is the GCC countries is all of their visions. Saudi Vision 2030, UAE Vision 2031. I think Qatar's is 2040. I may have that wrong. It might be Oman. Every single one of them, and I'm quite sad, but I've read them.
Well done.
Thanks. Not in depth.
You're like you're like the Chat GPT version.
No, I'm not. Yeah. But every single one of those visions has got sustainability as a theme throughout it, from a whole diversity governance perspective, women and girls. It's got environmental sustainability, regulation, targets, and it's also got social sustainability and targets. That really excites me, because I think if your intention is there, that's a massive opportunity for people like me and you. Where I think is even more exciting, it's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge, is bringing that to life with possibly quite a lack of expertise within this ecosystem. And that, I think, it is exciting, but it is going to be a challenge. How are we going to hit all these targets, and how are we really going to shift a dial within all these sustainability targets written within these visions? Is up for more conversation. And
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that you said earlier was that a sport is good with targets because we're used to it, but it also has determination and commitment built into it. And look, people are going to miss some targets, but there's no industry that's better at getting back up and having another go. So look, it's been a pleasure, Becky, to have you. I mean, look, genuinely inspiring career, and keep doing what you're amazing at. We love having you as a friend of Sport Impact. There's loads of stuff we're going to be doing together. So thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we can keep talking.
Brilliant.